It was just another Thursday night. You know the scene. Me, my phone, and an endless stream of digital junk food. I just watched a man speedrun eating a Big Mac, followed by a life coach whispering about manifesting abundance from what looked like his mom's basement. And then I noticed someone else in the room. A man, dressed in what looked suspiciously like an ancient Greek toga, was staring at my phone with a look of pure existential horror. He pointed a trembling finger at the screen where a woman was tearfully explaining why her ex was literally trash. Why, he demanded, are you watching this public lamentation? It was a YouTube short, I told him. He leaned in, squinting at the comments scrolling beneath. And this, he whispered, gesturing at the screen, this is the chorus. I looked. The top comment was just a string of skull emojis and the phrase, bro, you dodged a bullet. The man looked physically ill, and his reaction made me realize that the biggest tragedy of our time might not be in the stories we watch, but in the fact that they are designed to never, ever end. Okay, so let's unpack this a bit. I mean, this whole toga-clad encounter, it really got me thinking. We're all kind of swimming in this endless digital stream, aren't we? But what's it actually doing to us? You know, beyond the quick laughs, the distractions, what are the deep, long-term effects on our brains, yeah, but also our communities, even how we figure out what's true anymore?
It's fascinating, really, because that initial reaction you described, that visceral horror from your ancient friend, it points to something fundamental, doesn't it? It shows this huge shift in how we consume information, how we build understanding. So today, yeah, let's dive into that. We'll explore the long-term impacts of all this short-form video on our attention, our emotions, and also how these sort of digital narratives are reshaping, well, collective wisdom, maybe. And of course, the big ethical questions for the platforms actually building this stuff.
Right, that look he had, pure existential horror. It wasn't just like for dramatic effect that people talk about this thing, TikTok brain. What does that actually mean?
Yeah.
What's happening inside our heads when we get hooked on these tiny little video bursts? I mean, 15 seconds. It feels like it rewires you to expect everything now. And suddenly anything that requires, you know, sustained focus feels harder.
It's definitely more than just getting easily distracted. It really digs into our brain chemistry. Think about the dopamine system. Your brain releases dopamine not just when you get a reward, but when you expect one. So that anticipation, the next funny video, the next surprising clip, that's what keeps the dopamine flowing. It reinforces the craving. And, well, it's the same basic mechanism behind craving food or, unfortunately, even drugs. It locks you into wanting that next little hit.
Ah, okay. So it's not just watching one video. It's the anticipation of the next one that creates this cycle. It explains that feeling. You know, you think just one more and then, bam, an hour is gone. That's the zombie scrolling, isn't it?
That's exactly it. And for younger people particularly, this constant flood of content can be extremely dysregulating for their emotions. The longer they scroll, the bigger the impact. It's not passive. Your emotions get really tangled up in it. And that feeling, that zombie state, it doesn't just switch off when you log off. You might feel it later as like eye strain or what people are calling brain fatigue or brain rot.
Brain rot, yeah, I've heard that.
Right, and difficulty focusing, a kind of emotional distance from things. So it's like your brain is still buffering or something.
Yeah, I definitely know that brain fog feeling. It's real. Makes you wonder if the toga guy would have a term for that. Digital trance, maybe? Losing control of your own focus. And something else I've noticed or maybe felt is that compare and despair thing. You're scrolling Instagram, seeing these perfect lives.
Yeah.
It's hard not to feel a bit, you know, envious or inadequate, especially, I imagine, for younger adults.
That's a really important piece of it. That constant comparison, it feeds right back into the emotional disconnection we were talking about. It makes that zombie state even worse. And there's actual science here. An EEG study that measures brain waves found a clear negative link. The more someone showed signs of addiction to short-form video, the weaker their brain's ability was to control attention and impulses, specifically in the frontal area, which handles executive control, like managing conflict or staying focused.
Wow. So it's like it's measurably taxing our brain's resources, even if we don't always notice it immediately in like doing everyday tasks.
Yeah. Exactly. It suggests there are fewer cognitive resources available, even if behaviorally, in a simple task, you might not see a huge difference right away. The strain is happening under the surface.
Okay, back to my toga friend for a sec. He called that tearful video a public lamentation, and the comments, the chorus. Which is funny, but also kind of found, right? It makes you think. What happens when you replace structured stories like, you know, Greek tragedies with a beginning, middle, end, and a purpose with this endless algorithm-fueled digital drama. I mean, social media definitely shapes group attitudes. You see it with things like cancel culture, how fast opinions form online, and the real-world impact it can have.
It's a powerful dynamic, and a key part of it is how these platforms, because they're designed for engagement, naturally create these echo chambers or filter bubbles. You're mostly fed content that confirms what you already believe. It sort of barricades you from different viewpoints, which feels comfortable, maybe,
But it makes it really jarring when you do see something that contradicts your beliefs. That's that cognitive dissonance thing, that uncomfortable mental clash.
Precisely. And the natural reaction is often defensiveness or just avoiding the conflicting info altogether. We seek out what confirms our view. It's human nature, amplified by algorithms.
So we're kind of building these little personalized reality tunnels online. And it's not just the information we consume, it's how we present ourselves too. This idea of authenticity labor, crafting this perfect, maybe slightly fake version of yourself online.
Yeah.
It feels like it creates this culture where everyone's hyper aware and constantly comparing. It sounds exhausting.
It is exhausting. And think about what this does to the bigger stories, the grand narratives that societies use to define themselves. Things like historically manifest destiny or core national mottos. These big ideas used to be spread through, books, speeches, traditional media. Now they get chopped up into these tiny, emotionally charged bits online. And social media algorithms love that stuff. They grab onto the engagement, the emotion, and just amplify it like crazy. They give these narratives a life totally separate from their original context. It's social media propulsion.
So grand narratives get turned into memes, basically. And that's why maybe complex political arguments struggle against a simple, catchy slogan like build the wall, because it's easy to digest, low effort.
Exactly. Minimal cognitive load. And this whole environment, it kind of chips away at trust in traditional sources like mainstream news or institutions. Social media feels more democratic, bypassing the old gatekeepers.
But that blurs the line, doesn't it, between what's genuine popular opinion, organic sentiment, and what might be, engineered to look popular.
It absolutely does. And with attention span shrinking, who has the energy or motivation to really dig in and fact check? It makes engineered narratives a really significant risk.
It's not just politics either. Think about meme culture in general. It seeps into everything, our language, our jokes.
Oh, definitely. Memes shape norms in subtle ways. Like you mentioned the American Psycho memes, they end up reinforcing a certain very specific image of masculinity, whether intentionally or not.
And then there's virtue signaling, publicly showing how good or righteous you are. Sometimes it's genuine, maybe promotes good values.
Oh, but it often feels performative, right? And it can actually shut down real conversation because people get scared of saying the wrong thing or not sounding virtuous enough. It can stifle genuine activism sometimes.
It really does feel like we're pieces in a game these platforms are playing with our attention. Which brings up the ethics. If these apps have such a huge impact, what responsibility do the designers, the UX people have? Because the whole model, the attention economy, is based on keeping us hooked. Maximizing engagement means maximizing attention, right? That's the business goal.
Yes, and some argue that this makes content feed businesses inherently, inhumane. If your profit is directly tied to how much time people spend staring at your product, it's almost impossible to prioritize both shareholder value and the user's well-being simultaneously. There's a fundamental conflict there.
You see it in specific features too, like Snapchat streaks.
Yeah.
People feel obligated to keep them going, losing sleep over it. And you can't just turn them off.
Exactly. Those are agency-inhibiting designs. They subtly reduce your control, making it harder to step away. It's a form of persuasive design, but it can easily cross the line into manipulation.
Or think about those beautifying filters everywhere now. On Instagram, TikTok, they mess with self-esteem, body image.
Seriously. There's research linking them to body dysmorphic disorder, and cosmetic surgeons actually say people bring in filtered photos wanting to look like that, an impossible ideal created by the tech itself.
Wow, that's quite a feedback loop.
It is, and consider things like loot boxes in video games. They use random rewards, very similar psychologically to gambling mechanics, to keep people playing and spending. They bring in billions, but companies are often very hesitant to acknowledge potential harms or even fund independent research into the addictive potential.
So the tech is just moving too fast, faster than we can study it or regulate it.
That's a huge part of the challenge. The innovation cycle is incredibly rapid. Research and regulation are always trying to catch up, always in reactive mode, like playing whack-a-mole. This is why there's a growing movement calling for humane design. Thinking about transparency, telling users when AI is involved, thinking about safety, about authenticity, making sure tech is inclusive, like fixing facial recognition that doesn't work well on darker skin tones, moving from just user-centered to truly human-centered design.
Right? Focusing on the human, not just the user clicking buttons. Maybe even adding friction intentionally, like keeping only tool apps on your home screen or charging your phone outside the bedroom. Little things to encourage more mindful use.
Those are great practical examples, yeah. Creating small barriers to mindless engagement.
So we started this whole deep dive thinking about that ancient Greek guy and his reaction to a YouTube short, this idea of stories that never end. And we've kind of journeyed through how these endless loops are shaping our focus, our communities, maybe even our sense of what's real and who we are. It's clear they aren't just passive tools, they're actively sculpting us.
Absolutely. And understanding those forces, the algorithms, the design choices, driving engagement, our own basic human needs for connection and reward, it's not just an academic exercise anymore. It's really about recognizing how these seemingly small, endless digital stories are profoundly influencing our daily reality and our collective understanding. The digital age gives us endless content, sure, but it also forces us to ask what kind of endless story we actually want to be living in.
That's it for this deep dive.